really glad you're here. I want to add my welcome. I'm so glad that you are with us here today. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor here, and I'm so glad that we're all getting to do this, and you're here with us on Easter. There's this thing that I've been afraid of for the last month or so, but I've been too afraid to Google it, that somewhere there are churches all over the U.S. embarrassing us today by having April Fool's Day themed sermons, right? Jesus is dead. April Fool's. No, he's alive. It's like, but I hope that's not true. I've been too afraid to Google it. If you come across that, I would love, just let me know. And it could just be that I really am the only person dumb enough to even think about doing that. But I didn't think about doing it. We're not doing it. We're never even come. No, we're not even close. Not even close. Anyways, weird. Actually, what we have been doing over the last few weeks is we've been talking about these 7 sayings that Jesus said. These 7 things that Jesus said when he was on the cross. We've been doing this. This will be our 4th week. We're kind of finishing up here today. We're just kind of looking at them in 2s and 3s. And we started off a few weeks ago. And when Jesus, the first thing that we did, we saw how human Jesus was. And we think of him as strictly as just being the Son of God sometimes, and we lose touch with just how he was just a dude too. I mean, he was expressing thirst, and he was expressing anxiety and fear when he's on there. And because of that, he is more relatable to us and is able to help us. And so we talked about that a few weeks ago. And a couple of weeks ago, we looked at just these multiple expressions where it was just obvious that Jesus overwhelmingly was concerned about other people. I mean, here he is being executed. He's been tortured for hours. He's exhausted. He's in excruciating pain. But his heart and mind is on what he can do for other people. He's worried about his mom. He's forgiving the people who are doing this to him, and he's looking at the people next to him who are dying, and he's trying to save them and help them know God in this last moment of their life. And so even at this worst moment, we see Jesus' compassion for other people. And then last week, we looked at these 2 phrases where Jesus, on the one hand, cried out in frustration and anxiety to God, saying, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And you see him wrestling with God's plan. But then, right after that, he's saying, but God, I trust you. So we see in Jesus him wrestling with God's plan, but ultimately trusting in the plan. And the thing that you see in all of these is the reason we're doing this is because you get a greater picture of what someone is like when you see them kind of at their weakest. And I've told some stories over the course of some embarrassing things for me. And I was thinking about this story the other day. This is about somebody else, and I need to tell you, this is like from 12 years ago. So don't try to figure out any of the characters in the story. So just don't. I know how you are. So 12 years ago, I'm visiting a friend in the hospital. I'm making sure that she's okay, and we're talking, and she goes, "Charlie, will you tell my husband and tell him to take out the trash? He never remembers to take out the trash. It's like he can't remember what day is trash day. Tuesday is trash day. And he always forgets. Will you please tell him to take out the trash and to put it in the trash can and take the trash cans out to the curb? I don't know why he won't take the trash cans to the curb. Charlie, can you do that? Can you please?" And you think I'm exaggerating. This conversation went on for 10 minutes. And I'm telling you, she is passionate about making sure that trash got taken out. It's like, will you tell him? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm never going to tell him. I'm thinking, I'm never going to tell anybody. And I was like, well, and that's obviously not true. I'll wait 12 years, and then I'll tell it anonymously when I live someplace completely different. And so I come back the next day and making sure she's okay. And Charlie, you were here yesterday, right? And I'm like, yeah. Did we have a conversation about trash? Yeah, I don't know if it was a conversation, but we talked about trash. So obviously, in that moment, this frustration that she has comes out. In Jesus, though, in this worst, darkest, most painful moment, the character and the commitment to others, the commitment to his mission, the genuineness, it just exudes out of him. The compassion that he shows to his mom, to his enemies, to thieves being hung next to him. And this authenticity that we see. And ultimately today we're going to see his incredible commitment to his mission, to this thing that he came here to do for us. And so we're going to look at this last one in this series in John chapter 19, starting in verse 28. John 19, starting in verse 28. Later, knowing that everything had now been finished, and so that Scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, and so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. So the first one there, the being thirsty, we looked at that a few weeks ago, but looking at today is this thing, it's the very end. The very end, and he takes this drink and he says, "It's finished. It's done." And it says, with that he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. And so this last thing that we're looking at, this declaration, this last phrase, "it is finished." And the question that we have to ask, well, obviously you need to know, what's he talking about? Whatever it is, he is up there and he's thinking, man, my mission has come to an end. And so it's three simple words. In the Greek, it was actually just the one word. But just in this very simple one-word statement that he makes, this kind of declaration, it's done. And I don't imagine, him just like some sort of like he'd run away. It's like, yes! But just kind of this emotionally, physically, spiritually exhausted saying, this thing that I came here to do, it's now done. And with that, he died. So obviously the big question that we have to ask is, what is he talking about? What is he saying? Because in those, again, very three simple English words, there's a lot there. And while it's a phrase that obviously we know what it means, well, it's finished. We know what that phrase means. But there's so much there. First of all, we have to know what the it is. What is it? And what does it mean that it's finished? Because in this very simple phrase is this powerful statement of what it is that Jesus Christ did for us and the life that we can now have in him. So when he says it, what is he talking about? And when he says it, what he means, what he's talking about, is reconciling people to God. That's what he's talking about. Because, some people think, and this is the hang-up that I think a lot of us have. We think about Jesus and what he came to do and why he was important. He's like, well, he came here to teach us good things about God. He did that, but that's not the main reason why he came. Because if that's what was finished, if that was his mission, if his mission was just to teach us things about God, that mission got finished a long time ago. That was weeks earlier. He was done with that. Well, he was just kind of show us how to live. Well, he was done with that. This is talking about something deeper, something more powerful than that. There was a part of his mission that required him to die this death for us. And the way that he describes it, he kind of gives us a hint to this. Way back at the very beginning, this is John chapter 19. In John chapter 3, Jesus is talking about his mission. And it's in one of those verses that is probably one of the, if not the most famous Bible verse. It used to be put on signs at football games and things. John 3:16. He says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shouldn't have to die, but instead can have life forever with me." And then he goes on to explain, say, hey, listen, I have not come here to condemn the world. And I think it's important for those of you who are new, you need to make sure that you know that we know that Jesus said that. Jesus said that's not why he came. He didn't come here to condemn the world. And in case there's a part of you that kind of spent the last few days as you're getting ready to come here today thinking, psyching yourself up for the giant wad of condemnation that comes when you have to come to church, you're going to be spared from that today. There's no condemnation that's coming. Jesus said he didn't do it, and if he didn't do it, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I ain't come here to condemn the world. And then he said this. He says, the world is condemned already. I came here to save it. And I think if there's anything that we can all agree on, it doesn't matter how old you are, where you came from, what your season of life is, what your demographic is, what your politics are, I think we can all agree that this world is broken. This world is damaged. This world is sick. This world is condemned. And Jesus saw that. He said, they don't need me to tell them something that they already know. And it was true 2,000 years ago, and it's still true now. This world stands condemned. It is broken and hurt. And Jesus did not come down here to be like, you saw what you did. And then just leave. It says he came here, and it talks about that he had a ministry of reconciliation. And that's a powerful word, reconcile, reconciling people, bringing opposing parties together. Now, people ask me from time to time, because they kind of have, I think, a morbid curiosity about what it's like to be a dad that has a wife and then only daughters. So there's me, my wife, and 3 daughters. It's me and 4 women in the house, and people are strangely curious about that because it seems scary. I don't know what it is they think. It's actually awesome. People say, "Hey, what's it like to be outnumbered?" I'm like, I wouldn't know. They're all on my side. You should ask Heidi. Yeah, ask Heidi what it's like to be outnumbered. They vote with me, right? But it is different. I mean, I talk to people. I'm a little more scared of these people who only have boys. Like I've never had to dodge a toy being thrown at my head. There's no flailing punches or anything like that. It's not aggressive. It's not very loud. But I would just say there's a lot of emotion, right? A lot of emotion, some crying. And if that feels like stereotypes to you, I'm not trying to stereotype anybody. I'm just telling you objectively what it's like in my home, right? And it gets intense, and there's a lot of intensity, and there's a lot of girl relationships there, relating to each other. And the role, I think, of girl dad lots of times is just try to be, hey. Because we get into these things where there's these feuds and then there's these problems. And I feel this responsibility to have kind of a ministry of reconciliation, if you will. It's like, this person's upset with this person and so much emotion has gotten in the way that they can't see anymore where the other one is coming from. And so I just kind of step in. I'm like, hey guys, it's going to be okay. And do you see this? Do you see this? And I'm trying to bring 2 opposing parties back together to bring unity in the family, right? And so unlike our relationships, though, the reconciliation that Jesus brings, it's not a two-sided conflict, really. There's really just the offended party, God, and the offending party, us. We have, through our sin is essentially rebellion against God. It's damaging to God. It's hurtful to God. And it has separated us. It has breached, it has broken the relationship. The world is broken because we're broken. And I think, hopefully, I know we can all agree that the world's broken. I would hope that we could also then agree that we're the ones that broke it. Collectively. You think, no, it was the past generation. Yeah, you know who the past generation blamed it on? The past generation. We've been breaking this thing and making it worse for a long time. We've done this. And it's a collection of individual people breaking their commitment and their love and their relationship with God. And so what Jesus has done, this thing that Jesus did, his primary mission and what he did is to reconcile us, to fix that. I want God and I want people, I want them back together. And there's a couple of things that you're going to have to believe if you're going to believe that this is true. And the first one is this, is that God is holy. And what that means is that God is so perfect and so different that a sin against him is a much bigger deal than what you think it is. It is not something that is simply shrugged off. I think God just, it's not that big a deal. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Because God is God. He's not you. I mean, you think about it. If you backtalk your friend, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. You backtalk your mom, that's real bad. You backtalk the king, that's different. You backtalk the creator God of the universe, that's very different. it cannot just be shrugged off. It can't just be like, oh, my bad, ain't no worries. It has to be dealt with. You know? That's part of being a parent. Yeah, this has to be dealt with. Part of being a ruler. It has to be dealt with. And you're talking about the amazing, awesome, perfect creator God. A sin against him, it has to be dealt with. And some people, they're just a little hung up there, to be honest. Some of you right now, it's like, I'm a little bit hung up on that. He should be nicer than that. It shouldn't be that big a deal. Well, if the God was that perfect and that amazing, where it would he would just be like, oh, you can just rebel against me all you want. It would be no big deal. Well, that's not holy. But even still, if that were the case, that even worse your sin is against such a good God. It must be dealt with. But the second thing that you have to believe is you have to believe that not only is God holy, but that God is also good. That God is also good, that even though that sin has to be dealt with, he can't just shrug it off, but he couldn't just let you go either. Because he loves you too much, he cares about you too much, and is too interested in you personally to let you go. And I think some people get hung up here too. I think some people just can't get over or really believe in the idea that the God of the universe would care enough to enter into this world, much less to enter into my individual world. But this is the story of Jesus. The story of Jesus is not only him coming into our world physically, come into our world spiritually, but to engage us individually in our lives to make us right with God. He cares too much. He loves too much to let it go. He can't shrug it off because he's holy, but he can't just leave you alone because he loves you and he's too good. And so he sent his son Jesus because it has to be dealt with. And Jesus says, I'll deal with it. And that's why he's on the cross. To show you and to make sure that the world understands, man, that sin is a big deal, and he is taking a punishment that is required for that sin. And he says, I'll take it. And the perfect Son of God takes a punishment for all of us. Because sin must be dealt with. But he wants to forgive. And so Jesus says, give it to me. And so in that moment, the reconciling people to God, it's finished. I've done it. I've taken the punishment. I've taken this death. So now people can be reconciled and be made right with God. So that's what the it is. But what does he say about it? He said, it is finished. Well, there's powerful just even that this verb is in the present tense. Is means now, not in the future. I think way too many of us are waiting for the brokenness to end and the hurt and the guilt and the shame. We're waiting for it to end in heaven. That we think that life with God is about getting some sort of card that you get to redeem at some point after your death. When what Jesus says is that this life that I'm offering you, it is a present reality. It is not something that is going to be true. It is something that is true for you now. The healing is now. The life is now. The hope is now. The forgiveness is now. Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and have it to the fullest. He didn't say, I come so that you can get to go to heaven one day. So I want you to have life now. Even as this world continues to be broken, even as the world and people around you continue to be broken, you can have life and healing and hope and joy now in this reality. And heaven's a really cool thing to think about. What that would be like. To be with God forever. To not have to be in a world that is broken anymore. And obviously the avoidance of hell and being eternally separated from God. We don't want that either. But on some level, we can avoid the hell that we are putting ourselves through now and live a heavenish kind of life in reconciliation and peace with God now. It can be greater fulfilled later, but right now, it's true now. And so many of us, we are still suffering like it's not finished. We're waiting for something. When God wants it to be true of your life, right now. It, reconciling people to God, is true now, and it is finished. It's done. Finished means there's no more work left to be done. There's no more work left to be done. And let me tell you, right now, I'm sitting here and I'm telling you all this, and it's like, okay, God did this great thing for you, and He wants this for you, and He died for you, and He wants to give you life, and He wants to forgive you. He wants to bring healing to your heart. He wants to bring you hope and forgiveness. And you're like, man, that all sounds amazing and great. And you're like, well, yeah, it does. It is great, isn't it? Jesus is great, and God's great, and church is great, and Bible's great, and cross is great, and Easter's great. It's all great. You want that, don't you? You're like, I just don't feel like I'm ready. Like I still got some bad things going on in my life. I got to work on some stuff. Hey, guess what? The work has already been done. Jesus' work was done, and He did all the work. There's no work left. There's nothing left to do. It's like you came up late to the workday project, right? And you feel like you want to contribute. I got a hammer. Like, we're done. I got to do something. No, you got to do nothing. The work is done. And you, well, I gotta get good. I gotta stop doing this. I gotta start doing this. There's no work left to be done. Nothing left for Jesus to do, and He didn't leave anything for you to do. All of the work is done. You don't have to do anything to earn it on the front end, and there's no bait and switch after the fact. There's no one of these things where it's like, oh, it's no work, and you're like, oh, all I have to do is agree to the terms and conditions. Scroll, click. Next thing you know, Facebook's listening to your private conversations in your bedroom, right? That's not cool, man. Let's just take a little informal poll. I know we're talking about Easter. How many people here have had an ad pop up on their screen about something you've never searched before, but you've only talked about out loud? Oh, creepy. There's nothing like that. He is offering you something for free. He did all the work. All the work is done. It's finished. All that's left is for you to believe it and accept it and make it yours. That's it. Well, how can I know? And that's why we switch from Good Friday to Easter. He made sure you would know. Because the one who said that He had the power to overcome death in your life came back to life. He didn't just talk about it, He demonstrated it. Now, that's a pretty cool trick to raise Lazarus from the dead. That's like, whoa, who is this dude? But to raise yourself from the dead, that's another matter. I own death. I am the Lord of life. And He showed it by walking out of that tomb. And so it's time to put all the anxiety and the fear and the uncertainty behind and just click accept. And make it yours. You don't have to work. There's nothing that you have to do. You don't have to get yourself right first. You just receive it. And then the God sends His Spirit to live inside you. And He does a new work inside your heart. That's the life that God is offering you. So there are some of you here today who just kind of are hovering on the fringes of Christianity. Whether this is your first time to come to church in a while or you've been coming to church every week for a while. You're just kind of hovering there on the edge. You haven't fully made it yours. Maybe you understand Maybe some of you, this is brand new. This is like a really new concept for you. Either way, it's simple. There's no fancy prayer that you have to pray. There's no membership class. There's no 10-step deal. It's in your heart, make a decision to say that I believe that this is true and I want to make it mine. And if you do that, will you please do me a favor? Will you put that on a connection card and put it in the offering basket here in a little bit and just let us know you did it? Same deal. There's no weird things going to happen. We'll just send you a letter that says that's awesome and tell you we're glad that you were here. But we just want to pray for you and help you if we can. But we want to celebrate with you if this is a decision that you're making here today. So will you please let us know? And for the rest of you who have already made this decision, our hope and prayer for you this morning is it just becomes a little bit more real. And that you can rest again in the incredible finished work that Jesus Christ did for you on the cross. So we have different ways that we respond at the end of service. We do this every week. We have worship. We just encourage you to worship and to sing and to proclaim the goodness and awesomeness of God and His Son Jesus. But we also have some response places in the back. We have communion. It doesn't matter if you're a member here. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, feel free to take communion in the back. There's wafers back there. You just dip it in the cup and you take it right there. And it's a kind of commemoration of Jesus' death on the cross for you. There's prayer candles where you can just kind of pray at the cross. There's an awesome prayer team that would love to pray with you if you need a little encouragement. We also have an opportunity to give. It's just an incredible way to give back to God. It's what God asks of us, to give back to Him what He's given to us. And it's an awesome way of serving and responding and worshiping God. But let's just do this for each other. Let's just pray for each other. Let's pray for those who still need to make this a present reality for them. And that all of us would be able to trust and rest in the finished work of Jesus. Let's pray. God, I thank you for Easter Sunday. I thank you for this one and the last 2,000 of them. I thank you for that first one, where, God, you demonstrated to your disciples and ultimately to the whole world that death can be overcome, that life with you is a possibility. And God, I pray that that possibility will become a reality for all of us, whether it be for the first time or the next time, that we would all here today live in the rest and the reconciliation that your Son, Jesus Christ, brought for us on the cross. God, I pray that those who are still on the edge would give their heart and life fully to you right now in this moment. And we thank you for your Son who makes all this possible. And it's in His name we pray.